Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning we will be discussing on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 48, and we are almost at the end of the chapter entitled The Passing of Bhishmadev and the Presence of Lord Krishna. And this morning's class will be given by His Grace Balabhadra Bhattacharya Prabhu from ISKCON Atlanta. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Haribo, Maharaj, accept my obeisance, Lord Prabhupada. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Prabhu?
Good, good. I was thinking about you guys yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you.
So should I start?
Says that he thinks about you all the time.
Wonderful. Okay, I'll start, okay?
Yes, Prabhu, go right ahead.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Bana Chari Jamuna Tira Bana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Balaba Girivardhari Gopi Janna Balaba Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Haribo 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 Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribraja Bhattacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Nitilila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribraja Bhattacharya Ashtotara Satasi Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Go Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Akuna Radha Kuna Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Neelachala Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai Shri Shri Gauni Tai Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Sarat Bihari Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ganga Maya Ki Jai Samveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai Sankirtan Jagna Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 9, text 48. Tato Yudhishthiro Gatva Saha Krishno Gajavayam Pitaram Santvayam Asa Gandarim Cha Tapaswinim Tato Yudhishthiro Gatva Saha Krishno Gajavayam Pitaram Santvayam Asa Gandarim Cha Tapaswinim Tato Yudhishthiro Gatva Saha Krishno Gajavayam Pitaram Santvayam Asa Gandarim Cha Tapaswinim.
Tato Yudhishthiro Gatva Saha Krishno Gajavayam Vitaram Santvayam Asa Gandarim Cha Tapaswinim.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Tato Yudhishthiro Gatva Saha Krishno Gajavayam Pitaram Santvayamasa Gandharim Cha Tapasvinim.
Tato yudhishtharo gatva saha krishno gajavayam pitiram santvayamasa gandharim cha tapasvinim.
Anyone else?
ततो युधिष्ठिरो गत्वा सः कृष्ण गजावयं पितरं सान्त्वयामास कान्तारीं च तपस्विनं. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, word for word. Tata, thereafter, Yudhishthira, Maharaj Yudhishthir, Gatwa, going there, Saha, with Krishna, the Lord, Gajavayam, in the capital name Gajavaya, Hastinapura, Pitaram, unto his uncle Dhritarashtra. Santwayam Asa, consoled, Gandharim, the wife of Dhritarashtra, Cha, and Tapasvinim, an ascetic lady. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thereafter, Maharaj Yudhishthira at once went to his capital, Hastinapur, accompanied by Lord Shri Krishna. And there he consoled his uncle and aunt Gandhari, who was an ascetic. Report. Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, the father and mother of the Yodhana and his brothers, were the elder uncle and aunt of Maharaj Yudhishthira. After the Battle of Kurukshetra, the celebrated couple, having lost all their sons and grandsons, were under the care of Maharaj Yudhishthira. They were passing their days in great agony over such a heavy loss of life and were practically living the life of ascetics. The death news of Bhishmadev, uncle of Dhritarashtra, was another great shock for the king and the queen, and therefore they required solace from Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira was conscious of his duty, and he at once hurried to the spot with Lord Krishna and satisfied the bereaved Dhritarashtra with kind words from both himself and the Lord also. Gandhari was a powerful ascetic, although she was living the life of a faithful wife and a kind mother. It is said that Gandhari also voluntarily blindfolded her eyes because of the blindness of her husband. A wife's duty is to follow the husband 100%, and Gandhari was so true to her husband that she followed him even in his perpetual blindness. Therefore, in her actions, she was a great ascetic. Besides that, the shock she suffered because of the wholesale killing of her 100 sons and her grandsons also was certainly too much for a woman. But she suffered all this just like an ascetic. Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishma Deva in character. They are both remarkable personalities in the Mahabharata. Om Agyanati Mirandasa Jananjanan Salakaya Chaksham Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupakadamaya Dante Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone to this discussion this morning. I'll cover a few points and then hopefully we can have kind of an open discussion on what I consider to be an important topic, which is expressed here in this purport regarding proper etiquette with regards to dealing with the seniors in our communities, in our societies. Of course, in our Krishna consciousness movement, going back in the beginning, it was all young devotees who joined the movement in the beginning. There were no seniors, maybe one or two here and there, but primarily teenagers, 20-year-olds, maximum 30-year-old persons. So the thought about seniors was not something in our minds, except for Srila Prabhupada, who was the topmost senior. And devotees took care of him so nicely. Prabhupada would say that I gave up my few children, now I have hundreds of children. And they were all lovingly taking care of Srila Prabhupada as he progressed in his age up to 82 or so. So that is the standard in our culture. Our Vedic culture is a beautiful culture. Sometimes some aspects of our Vedic culture is reflected in materialistic culture. And I was thinking with regards to the community that I grew up in back in the 50s and 60s, and how there was no such thing as a retirement home. I never heard of such a thing growing up. There were no retirement homes. The seniors would retire to wherever they lived. Like I was thinking of my grandmother. We called her Annie Mae, and she died when she was about 87 years old. I left my hometown in 1973 to join the movement. And at that time, my mother and father had both passed, and my grandmother and my youngest brother were living in our apartment. And it was interesting. She kind of understood that I became a devotee. She didn't know what it really meant, but she told me one time, I used to visit her every Christmas and the holidays and take prasadam, and she loved prasad. So she said, I pray every day that you never leave that temple. I thought, wow, what a blessing. I pray every day that you never leave, because she knew the kind of foolishness I was in before that. But the point I want to make with reference to that is that in that community, which was a moderately poor, approaching somewhat level of middle class community, the seniors were never neglected. I'm serious. Practically, you couldn't even imagine a senior being neglected. Like my grandmother, if she needed something, someone would come every day, knock on the door. Annie Mae, you need something? And they would go shopping for her and take her to the doctor. And unbelievable. Poor community, African-American community. But the culture was very rich. So I was thinking about that, and I looked in the Bhagavatam, and it's a beautiful kind of, it was not necessarily a verse, but there's a reference in the purport that Srila Prabhupada says in such a beautiful way. The verse is from 1st Canto, 8th chapter, verse number 5. And it says, the clever Duryodhana and his party cunningly usurped the kingdom of Yudhisthira, who had no enemy. By the grace of the Lord, the recovery was executed, and the unscrupulous kings who joined with Duryodhana were killed by him. Others also died, the duration of life having decreased for their rough handling of the hair of Queen Draupadi. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, now listen to this phrase, in the glorious days, let that resonate for a second. In the glorious days, or before the advent of the age of Kali, the brahmanas, the cows, the women, the children, and the old men, of course, old women as well, were properly given protection. And then he elaborates a little bit in the purport, because he gives 5 points, and then the 5th one is about the old men. The protection of the old men gives them a chance to prepare themselves for better life after death. So that is our culture. That's the glorious days of our culture. The advent of Kali has impacted those glorious days. That culture has been corrupted practically all over the world. Not only in the hometown that I grew up in, but I know it's actually part of many cultures where the seniors were taken care of. Of course, one time Srila Prabhupada said that in some ancient cultures, cannibalistic cultures, I would imagine, he would say that when the person got old, they would kill him, roast him, and then Prabhupada used this phrase, and have a love feast. Because we say Sunday love feast, but in Prabhupada, he said this directly. They would kill them, roast them, and have a love feast. Now, that is not our culture. Our culture is that even though a senior may be, as in the case of Dhritarashtra, the cause of horrible circumstances. It is well known that it's said that Dhritarashtra pretty much caused this Kurukshetra. He could have stopped it because these were his sons. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, what does it say? Dhritarashtra Uvacha, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta Yuyutsava, Mamaka, Pandavas. He's saying, my sons. And Srila Prabhupada points out, he's actually thinking only of his sons. What did my sons and the sons of Pandu? He's only claiming his sons. What did they do? Gathered there, Samaveta Yuyutsava. They came together with the desire to fight. What did they do? Because he's concerned about his sons. So this whole disaster, this catastrophe where 640 million people died, that's one estimate. The other estimate was 1 billion people. And they came from different parts of the world. This could have all been avoided. Dhritarashtra could have stopped the whole thing. He could have, because he's the father of the, Duryodhana and all those persons. But he didn't. He had some, he didn't get the kingdom because he was blind and he had some envy and all of that. So the point here is that even though all of this happened due to he and his sons, at the end, when the Kurukshetra battle is over, that's where all this lamentation is being pointed out, all this pain, this suffering, Kunti's suffering, Dhritarashtra's suffering, everyone's suffering, so much so that Krishna has to come and console them. Yudhisthira, of course, being the great personality, he also came to console them. So even though all of this was caused pretty much by Dhritarashtra, look at the character and the practice of this glorious culture by Yudhisthira. One thing that we can put this into context, that how does this affect us? I mean, that's the ancient times. We can read about it, we can study it, we can categorize it, we can quote verses about it. That's just nice ancient philosophy. No, it's like a blueprint for our society, the Krishna consciousness movement, so that we, by our activities, can demonstrate to the world the proper culture. That's what this information is for. It's not just for us to read it, study it, take exams on it. It's meant to be implemented. Jnana, Vijnana. We look at all this information. Now, how can we incorporate this? For instance, within our movement, now we have something, I think it's called Vaishnava Care, or Devotee Care. My dear God sister, Sangeeta Prabhu, is working with that, and other devotees around the world trying to figure out how to deal with the aging population of the Krishna consciousness movement. It sounds so strange to say that because I'm also a senior myself, being 70 years old, and I know my good friend Parikshit is approaching that soon. So we fall into that category. It was so funny when I went to the grocery store once, and this lady asked me, "Do you want the senior discount?" I said, "Oh God, I'm getting old." At that time, I was 63 or what. I said, "Give me a couple of more years." But now I'm 70, and I look for those senior discounts everywhere. So we have an aging population of devotees. Now, that could sound a little depressing, but it's not. If you look at it properly, for instance, the older Prabhupada disciples, my God brothers and God sisters, I have no idea right now exactly how many remain. There's probably a few thousand, not that many. And putting that into context, in my situation as a Srila Prabhupada disciple, remembering Srila Prabhupada's God brothers and some God sisters, the Gaudiya Math, and how comforting it was to know that some of them were still alive. I mean, some devotees don't see it like that, but I do. I remember doing kirtan with Gaudiya Math devotees in Mayapur, I believe at the place of Srivas Thakur. We all kind of merged together and had this big, huge kirtan, Gaudiya Math and ISKCON devotees. It was the most ecstatic thing I've ever seen. Unbelievable. But in my mind, I'm thinking, Prabhupada's God brothers, disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And I've seen several of them in Mayapur. And the joy that it brought me just to see them. I know there's controversies and all that, but I don't care about all that. Just to see Prabhupada's God brothers was such an amazing experience. It's almost like being with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. It was incredible. So we, and I would say to the next generation, you all have that facility now with Prabhupada's disciples. I'm not telling you how to see it, but I'm just giving you the way I look at it when I think about the Gaudiya Math. And now there are no Gaudiya Math Prabhupada God brothers alive, as far as I understand, not a single one, because they would be 100 and something years old. And that's interesting. But still, we have older Prabhupada disciples still living. Like Satsuru Maharaj, I believe he's over 80 years old. Rupanuga, over 80 years old. And they're going through physical difficulties. So we have to think, I'm so happy that we do have the Vaishnava care and devotee care, end of life care. Devotees are starting to focus on that a little more, but we didn't think about that in the beginning, but it's part of our culture. We're so busy preaching, which is great. We're preaching and spreading Krishna consciousness, but we should not neglect our culture. As Prabhupada said, glorious days of the Vedic culture, when the old men, the children, and the cows are all nicely protected. So this modern civilization, this Kali Yuga, it distorts the real view of life, how life should be lived, the joyous ways of living life. Our Krishna consciousness movement, it provides an incredible opportunity for the most joyous lifestyle you can imagine, all the way to the end of life, all the way to the very end. Just by studying the books in the proper format, understanding what's being presented to us, and also understanding that this is something we should try to follow. As it says, Mahajano Yena Gatasa Pantaha. So we follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas and great devotees. Yudhisthira Maharaj is an amazing devotee. We all know that. So with reference to how we should treat our seniors, let's think about how Yudhisthira actually did this. Now, in this circumstance, Vidura, he actually goes to Dhritarashtra and convinces him to leave the shelter of Yudhisthira and his brothers. He's actually saying so many things to him. We don't have time to go through all of it, but he preached to Dhritarashtra, and of course, Gandhari. So he basically tells him that you're living like a kept dog in the homes of those that you tried to kill. You tried to kill these persons, and now you're living like a kept dog. And he tells them basically, get out. How does he say? He says, please therefore leave for the north immediately without letting your relatives know. For soon that time will approach, which will diminish the good qualities of men. Thus Maharaj Dhritarashtra, the scion of the family of Ajamita, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, pragya, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus, he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation as directed by his younger brother, Vidura. So it's interesting that Vidura and Maitreya both were able to sit with Krishna as Krishna was preparing to leave this planet. And they learned at the same time from Krishna all this transcendental knowledge. But the interesting point that I noticed is that when it was time for Vidura to learn from, originally it was to learn from Uddhava. Uddhava, and here again, it talks about the respect for seniors. Uddhava did not take the opportunity to train Vidura, even though he learned at the same time with Maitreya, because Maitreya was older than Uddhava. So Uddhava, out of respect, sent Vidura to learn from Maitreya. That's how we have this conversation with Maitreya and Vidura. So Vidura is bringing that knowledge that he heard from Maitreya. Now he's giving it to Dhritarashtra and telling him to give up this attachment. And then here's a really beautiful part that, again, as I said in the beginning, that Dhritarashtra could have stopped all this disaster. Everyone's suffering now at the end, caused so many problems. But Yudhisthira is so kind that after Dhritarashtra, Vidura, Gandhari leaves, Yudhisthira does what he did every day, coming, checking on his elders. He would come to see how they were doing. Did they need anything? Like I mentioned about my grandmother, right? So this is our culture. And Yudhisthira set that example. He would always check on them. So he came, he said, Maharaj Yudhisthira, whose enemy was never born, performed his daily morning duties by praying, offering fire sacrifice to the sun god, and offering obeisances, grains, cows, land, and gold to the brahmanas. He then entered the palace to pay respects to the elderly. Along with his sadhana morning program, he then paid respects to the elderly. However, he could not find his uncles or aunt. Uncles means Vidura and Dhritarashtra. He could not find them and his aunt, the daughter of King Subala. Maharaj Yudhisthira, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjaya, who was sitting there, and said, Sanjaya, where is our uncle, who is old and blind? Where is my well-wisher, Uncle Vidura, and Mother Gandhari, who is very, very afflicted due to all her sons' demise? My uncle Dhritarashtra was also very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very ungrateful. Did he therefore take my offenses very seriously and along with his wife, drown himself in the Ganges? So keep this in context. He's worrying about the person who caused so much pain for his family, his brothers, his mother. But because of the culture, glorious culture, it impels him to have this level of respect for his elders. So again, what does that have to do with us now? This is 2022. Come on, this is not ancient India. This is our culture. That's my main point. This is our culture. And we have to make sure that we enshrine this cultural situation for the future generations. And I want to give a couple quick examples of devotees who maybe not even consciously thinking about this, but are setting such a beautiful example of taking care of the seniors. First example is Sikhi Mahiti Prabhu. I think some of you have met Sikhi Mahiti Prabhu. He was temple president in Philadelphia for a few years, but he was in Atlanta. We've worked together many years. And he was recently co-president in Atlanta. But his mother, who's 96 years old, maybe 97 years old by now, has dementia. Practically, she don't even know where she is half the time. So Sikhi Mahiti's siblings were thinking to put her into a retirement home. Sikhi, being the kind of devotee that he is, he has an apartment in Mayapur. And I know for almost 2 years, he worked, getting her ready, getting her visa. And he took his mother to Mayapur, 96-year-old mother to Mayapur, so she could pass away from this world in Mayapur. And he left his, a president's, co-president position, left everything in Atlanta, took his mother to Mayapur to give her that blessing. I thought, what an incredible example. And he sent me some videos. And he told me a story. He said, one day she said to him, where am I? And he said, you were in India. She said, how did I get here? He said, well, I brought you here, mommy. I brought you here. So in the video, she's sitting there looking at the Samadhi, Prabhupada's Samadhi. And of course, the new temple, eating her little breakfast. I'm thinking, this is unbelievable. She's getting more mercy than me because of her son. And he's such a devotee. Srila Prabhupada disciple, such a wonderful, kind-hearted devotee that he would do that for his mother at the last days of her life. Yudhisthira taking care of Dhritarashtra, even though Dhritarashtra did so many so-called bad things. And then Sikamiti's mother's not some devotee. I don't think she's ever chanted the rounds and all that. But her son has such a Krishna conscious heart. And another example here in Atlanta is a very dear devotee. He's a disciple of Jai Pataka Maharaj, Adidev Gaur, and his wife Shamla Radhika. So Adidev Gaur's father was my right-hand man the 18 years that I was president. I'm serious, right-hand man, Gujarati man, very wonderful devotee, who was also initiated, Madan Mohan Prabhu. So Madan Mohan Prabhu is older, and Adidev Gaur and his wife were taking care of them, okay? He built a house with special quarters just for his father, with a special temple room, everything for his father. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is that Adidev Gaur's son and daughter are seeing this. They're seeing how their father is taking care of his father and mother, their grandparents. Then eventually, of course, Madan Mohan Prabhu and his wife, they passed away. And I was fortunate to be there the night of both of their passings, not at the same time, separated by a few years, but I was there because I'm very close to that family. Now, Adidev Gaur has lots of physical problems. He's about 68 years old now, 67, 68. And he has dialysis and all these different things. And he can't work and can't generate it. Now his son, who saw him set that example, is taking care of his father and mother, along with the daughter. And I'm thinking, wow, look at our culture. From Madan Mohan to his son, from his son to his son. And they're preserving the respect for the seniors in the culture. So in our movement, this is it's a turning point for us, because now we have these senior aging devotees. How are we going to deal with that? And all due respect and all glory to Sangeeta Mataji and other devotees around the world who are trying to organize and put all this together, make it work. It just needs more focus and more support, because it is our culture. Our culture is not just building temples and doing all kinds of big things. It's this as well. Taking care of the cows, the brahmanas, the women, the children, and the old people. We've actually not done so well with our children. We've done okay, but not as good as we could have. And with our seniors, we're just starting to sort of get into it as much as possible. The women also have their complaints about how things have gone in the movement. So we have to focus on this is our glorious culture, as Prabhupada called it. I had a nice message yesterday from Sangeeta Prabhu. I was inquiring about how to help my godbrother, Charu Deshnadas, who lives here in Atlanta. He's my senior godbrother, primary mentor. I love him so much, but he's going through a lot of physical suffering right now. So we were having lunch yesterday at Gita's house. Fantastic lunch. And I was thinking, how can I help Charu Deshna? So he had a certain particular situation that I said, I'll inquire from Sangeeta to find out how to help you on this. And she gave some beautiful response. But something else she said in her text to me, which was really amazing. Let's see if I can pull it up. Let's see, where did I put it? It's very important to hear this. If I can find it. Yeah, here we go. So she responded to my request, and then that was really nice. But listen to what she says here. You are very blessed to still have your original mentor. It's rare these days. I pray now listen, it was almost like she's instructing me, but it's kind of an interesting way. She said, I pray he is well taken care of there. Devotees bringing him healthy prasadam, running errands for him, reading with him, seeing to his other needs as his condition worsens, etc. I thought, wow. I mean, I couldn't even sleep last night because of that message. I thought, what am I doing? I know I'm a senior myself, but what am I doing for devotees like Charu Deshna? We have another devotee in Atlanta, Nanda Sutta. He's the disciple of Jai Pataka Swami, who's living in a retirement home. And another devotee, Prampara, a Prabhupada disciple, takes him prasadam all the time. And Prampara lives in Tennessee, and he comes down, goes to see him. Nanda has about 50 Shalagram Shilas in his little room, but he's always thinking how to take care of this devotee. So it dawned on my heart. I said, I have to get involved in this more. What can I do to help? And it's not only just ISKCON devotees, it's our membership. We have a very aging population amongst our Indian community and things like that. So as I was reading for the class today and thinking about the example of Yudhisthira Maharaj and how he showed so much love and respect for Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, despite all the problems that had happened in the past. Because sometimes the devotees in ISKCON, we kind of go, well, some of those older devotees, they did this, they did that, they left the movement, there's all these kind of excuses. They're just excuses because there's no one in the history of ISKCON that did as much damage as Dhritarashtra. Show me any person. You can name any person that you want that did as much damage as Dhritarashtra. And then you look at the example of Yudhisthira, how he served Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. Of course, the second half of the purport is describing the glorious nature of Gandhari. And I don't have a lot of time to read the whole story, but she's like, how did Prabhupada describe it? It's one phrase he says, Gandhari, my wife's name is Gandhari. Okay, so bear with me. He says, Gandhari, the ideal chaste lady in the history of the world. Okay? The ideal chaste lady in the history of the world. Prabhupada's words, not mine. So just look at that. Dhritarashtra being blind from birth, not only physically blind, but as we know from studying Bhagavad Gita, spiritually blind. But look at how Yudhisthira treats him. And look at how Vidura shows compassion to him, to preach to him. And I say it all the time, like sometimes we say a devotee is this way, a devotee is bad this way, that way. Then preach to them. Right now, I have a wonderful little project. I'm working with a godbrother, senior godbrother of mine, who has been disconnected from the movement since the 70s. Since the 70s. And I won't go into details. I won't even tell you his name. But he entrusted me. He said, Balabhadra, you are the key to get me connected to my Guru Maharaj's movement again. And I take that very seriously. He said, I'm depending on you to reconnect me with the movement. In fact, I have a program with him coming up on the 20. Oh my God, it's Friday. This coming Friday. He's an amazing poet, amazing writer, but he's just been disconnected. So some devotees have this attitude about who this person is and this, that, and the other, but they don't understand the person's heart. He's crying inside of the time he's been separated from his godbrothers, and he has a few friends in the movement, but not enough. And I'm thinking, we have made this excuse that this person is like that, instead of trying to do as Vidura did. Go and help that person. Go and help Dhritarashtra, who caused all this trouble. He broke all of that and brought Dhritarashtra out with Gandhari to go into their glory in the last days of their lives. So again, I'm saying Krishna's blessed me with this opportunity to help one of my senior godbrothers. He's 75 years old, to come back into the glory of the association of the Vaishnava. It's amazing. So all of this information that is before us in the Srimad Bhagavatam is not meant to be just read and categorized. It's meant to have an impact on our lives, to change the way we think, change our patterns of activities, change the nature of how we interact with each other. It's very powerful. Srila Prabhupada is saying, hearing, must constantly hear the Bhagavatam, because within the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita is like really the philosophy, the foundational philosophy of the movement. But when you go to the Bhagavatam, you see the whole culture. There's not a lot of the culture in the Bhagavad Gita. There's references here and there, but there's so much of the philosophy, Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, all these different aspects in the Bhagavad Gita. I was just reading the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Wow, what a complicated chapter. It is amazingly deep and complicated, all these philosophical points. The Srimad Bhagavatam is like watching a movie. It is the Krishna conscious movie. It's like they have these series in movies, like the Star Wars series and whatever different series, what is I don't know, just the names, they escape me now, but Bhagavatam is like the most amazing series. It's like better than any movie you've ever seen or will ever see. And when you go in there and you just absorb your consciousness in the Bhagavatam and allow it to come into your heart and come out as action, it replaces all of this nonsense that's in the world. It really does. Srimvata Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Ridyantasto Yabhadrani, Vidunoti Sritsitam. It is such an amazing message when properly heard and chanted. When you get that urge, Krishna's in your heart and he sees that this devotee has an urge, has the impetus to hear my glories. Let me help him. Ridyantasto Bhadrani. Let me go in his heart. I'm already in his heart. Let me cleanse it out if he just keeps hearing. And of course, Nasta Praiso Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatu Tamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Nasti. Regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, either through Zoom or at least you have to hear the Bhagavatam. If possible, go in person to the temple. And then what happens is all that inauspicious stuff in the heart, as Srila Prabhupada alluded to earlier, the influences of Kali Yuga, all of that is moved from the heart. But Srila Prabhupada, he says, not instantaneously. It begins the process, and over time, by continuous hearing, watering that seed of devotional service, bhakti lata, that watering process is shravana. So we have to do more shravana as much as we can as part of our sadhana, as much as our 16 rounds and all these things, morning programs, so on. We need to increase our shravana, the hearing, more and more and more. And it has multiple effects, cleanses the heart. Also, it impacts how we deal with life, and especially dealing with each other, as we mentioned about dealing with the seniors, dealing with the women, dealing with the children, dealing with the cows, whatever. All of that is in the Bhagavatam. So if we spend more time hearing the glorious Srimad Bhagavatam, take the culture seriously, try to incorporate as many of the aspects of the culture, glorious culture, as Prabhupada called it, into our lives, then our movement will become stronger and stronger. And this next generation, which most of you are part of, by you seeing that, or by setting that example yourself, as in the case of Yudhisthira, setting the example of how to deal with, here specifically the verse today is talking about the seniors, because Gundari and Pitarasa and all that. So by you doing that now, this next generation is coming up. They will see that. But if they don't see that, it'll be gone. If they don't see the love and reciprocation amongst devotees, how we deal with our seniors, how we deal with our women, how we deal with our whatever children, so on. If they don't see that now, then the next generation, it'll be gone. It won't be there. So some of you might think, well, Balabhadra, you're a senior, so you're trying to promote yourself. No, please don't take that. That's not the fact, But just to see this culture, because I know, as I told you about my grandmother and my culture growing up, that still impacts my life today, growing up in the poor Black community, seeing that love and respect for the seniors. And then seeing how it's growing a little bit in our movement now through Vaishnava care and all those things. It's heartening, it's very encouraging. But we need to be more conscious of this is our culture. And then use our intelligence to make sure that these things are being taken care of properly. So as I said, I was inspired by Mother Sangita's kind of covered instruction. She didn't say, Balabhadra, you should do, but she did say in a certain way, Balabhadra, you need to think about this. So anyway, I'll stop there. If anyone has any additional thoughts or comments, again, the main thought is respect for the seniors as part of our glorious culture. And then, of course, the beautiful qualities of Gandhari. But let's focus, if we can, on how we can improve in that kind of focused area. How can we improve in the area of taking care of our seniors whether they're Prabhupada disciples or senior members of our community, like that. Any thoughts from anyone?
Prabhu, first of all, thank you for such an amazing topic, and I think the topic is so important in today's ISKCON and just in the world in general, because it is slowly dwindling away. It is really dwindling away, because sometimes when I look back and just look at the young people in today's times, and I'm not talking about ISKCON devotees, that's the world in general.
Yes.
Today's youngsters don't really understand what it means to care for their parents, let alone the elders, because they're not exposed to it. They don't grow up in an environment where they see it. And they grow up in an environment where it's all about I, me, mine. Wow. And it's really sad, to see today's youngsters, today's youth, today's people, that mentality is slowly dwindling away. And I think, like you said, is because the parents are not showing that, are not exposing them to that. So therefore, to them, it's a very foreign concept.
Yeah.
And they think, but it's not me, why should I do it? It is really sad, but it is definitely an amazing topic, an amazing class, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Would like to ask devotees if you have any questions, any clarification, any topic, a discussion on this amazing topic of how we can, the focus on our seniors. Prabhu, I have a question, and
yes.
And I have to say that I dread the day. I dread the day where we will not have a single prophet disciple on this planet. I mean, I really dread the day, because I personally feel that there is so much more for me, at least I can speak for myself, as a second generation devotee by the mercy of my spiritual master, to really learn what it is, what it means to be a Prabhupada Nuga. We may hear, we may listen all the classes, but still to imbibe that mood is not by heart transplant. And I think, I'm very grateful, and like I really dread, but at the same time, Prabhu, what I also have noticed and learned, and this is my question, is that as Kali Yuga is progressing, and even within the devotee world, even within the ISKCON world, very newer devotees really don't understand the importance of seniority, or the importance of taking guidance or culture, or even, corrections or what have you, because they carry this mood that I know it all.
Yeah.
And I fear their spiritual life, because it's like saying, like today, if a senior corrects someone who's younger, and the younger is gonna say, who are you? Like, whatever, right? And then later on, the same junior will come to senior, and at the time of death, and like, okay, I'm just going to show my face and walk away, because I've literally witnessed that in ISKCON world, Prabhu. How can we fix this situation? Because it's really sad.
Well, it starts from the top, and my simple analysis is that there's so much focus now on the concept of the succession, that phrase they use now, succession, ISKCON succession plan. And there's a major focus on that. The next generation taking over management. And it's primarily about management, the management of the movement, the succession plan of management leadership. But it's sort of missing some of the elements of it, like we're talking about the seniors and all that. So if the next generation is becoming more qualified and doing so many more responsible, wonderful things in this movement, it's incredible. so many leaders from the so-called next generation, just like yourself and Parikshit Prabhu, wonderful leaders, next generation. So the leadership has to put more emphasis on that, put more resources in that, put your money where your mouth is. We can build beautiful temples and that's fantastic. But if we neglect the seniors, I don't think Srila Prabhupada would be happy with that, because he built the movement to take care of the devotees. He built the first building in Mayapur, not as a big, he built it as a place where devotees could be comfortable. And the devotees are living above the deities, and the Hindus hated that. I mean, I remember going to the shower in the Brahmachari aspect of that first 4-story building, and they had these domes in the middle of the bathroom, and the domes were over where the deities were downstairs. And that's what the Hindus didn't like, that the bathroom was above the deities. But Prabhupada wanted to take care of the devotees. He wanted us to think about that. So I think the leadership has to be put more resources, financial resources, mental resources to help those devotees like Sangeeta Prabhu, different ones around the world who are trying to do that. I know the GBC is trying their best, but just needs a little bit more, because this aging population is accelerating. Devotees are passing away so regularly now. Who knows, So that's one point, is that it has to come from the top. And individually in our own lives, we need to discuss these things more. These are the aspects of Krishna consciousness that get lost in the conversation sometimes, because we're not too philosophical, but sometimes we're so philosophical we miss the practical. And we forget jnana, vijnana. It's not just jnana, but it's also vijnana. What we read, like we read today about Yudhisthira, how he treated Dhritarashtra. How do we apply that? Well, Dhritarashtra caused so much pain for them. But Yudhisthira didn't take the excuse, well, this guy, I'm going to let him die. Look what he did to my family. No, he went to the culture, and he pulled from the culture, and every day went to see how his uncle, Prabhupada says there's a saying in India, a blind uncle is better than no uncle. Now, this is real, because Dhritarashtra was a blind uncle. So a blind uncle is better than no uncle. My uncle, Benny, my name is also Benny, and my uncle's name was Benny, and his son was Benny, and my son is Benny. There's 4 Bennies. At a family reunion one time, this little girl said, you guys need to get a life. 4 Bennies. So my uncle, on his 100th birthday, my wife, myself, my son Benny, and my grandson Antonio went to his birthday party. It was so beautiful. And my uncle was he's an amazing guy. So he said, he's sitting in a wheelchair. He said, when I was a young man, I was the baddest thing on the street. I was tough. He said, but now I can't get up out of this chair. And he said it with relish, like humble. It was amazing. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that now I really miss him. A 100-and-something-year-old uncle is better than no uncle. An uncle in a wheelchair is better than no uncle. A blind uncle, meaning some Prabhupada disciples who whatever, is better than no Prabhupada disciples. Suppose, like you said, the day when there are no more Prabhupada disciples, then you look back and say, wow. But now you still have Sasru Maharaj, you still have Hridayananda Maharaj, you still have Jayapataka Maharaj. Look at Jayapataka Maharaj, look at the situation he's in. He's hanging on just to try to be there for us. Your spiritual master, Bhattacharya Maharaj, when there were so many problems at New Vrindavan and all of that, I was sitting next to him in a meeting in Dallas. He said, Balabhadra, the reason I keep going to New Vrindavan is that when things really fall apart, they need to have some connection with the movement. I keep trying to keep that connection with them. Now we don't have him physically with us. We have books and memories from all the devotees. But again, just imagine the resource you still have with you. Those senior devotees that are still there. All they need is a little encouragement. I told you the godbrother that I'm working with, I'm just encouraging him, and he's feeling so inspired. These senior devotees, they don't want to be worshiped. Just don't ignore them. I mean, sometimes I'll walk into a temple, and if I don't say Haribol, nobody says Haribol. That's not right. It's not right. You say Haribol when the person comes in, you think can give you a donation. That's not right. It's not right at all. It's not our culture. Glorious culture. So starts from the top. in respect for each other, respect for the cows, the women, the children, the seniors, not just for the children, but for the seniors. Of course, the cows as well, right? And the women. If we just follow the cultural examples that are in the Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, oh my God, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the culture is like beautifully displayed, and the Bhagavatam beautifully displayed. Just follow it, all of us. And the next generation will see that example from us. Yat yat acharati shrestha, right? Whatever great man does, common men follow. If this next generation doesn't see it now, it will be lost within another generation, pretty much. Now, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but as you said, honestly, you can see it. It's not just in our culture, but it's the greater culture. The greater culture needs to see us setting that example. They don't just need to see us, doing all kinds of big, big, wonderful things. Those things are wonderful. Building temples and all these things are wonderful, but they need to see the culture. They're not missing a new building. I mean, come on. How many buildings they make all over the world every day? Another building is not going to, change the whole world. Our example will change the world. Our example is better than precept. As they say, example is better than precept. So when they see the love that the Hare Krishna movement shows its children, its women, its seniors, that's going to impact the world much more than some of the other things that we might think will impact the world. That would be my humble analysis of that. I'd love to hear some more thoughts of anyone else.
Yeah, would like to hear from devotees. It's such an amazing point. And I really like the point, Prabhu, where you mentioned, that we do so much focus on building buildings, so much on everything, which is great. But at the same time, I think we need to improve more on building spiritual communities.
Yes.
As opposed to just buildings and infrastructure, and that's great. Because Krishna is still opulent, and I get that. But I think it has to go hand in hand with building spiritual communities in the mood of emotional health, mental health, physical health, taking care of women, taking care of children, the elderlies, empowering women. Prabhu, because the thing is, we do so much of everything, but then I think it was my spiritual master many years ago. I think he gave this really powerful class, and I think it was Mayapur or South Africa, where we have all this. He says, but are our children protected? Are our women protected? Because sometimes women are looked upon as second-class citizens, when Prabhupada says we are not the body.
Yes,
we are at equal level. They have equal voice and in equal, say. Are the elderly protected? Are the children feeling like this is my temple?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is my service. Are they feeling empowered? Are they feeling inspired? Because I think this is what we have a lot of work to do, because it goes back to building spiritual communities rather than just doing everything infrastructure, And I think that's where the Vedic culture comes in from Yudhishthira Maharaj, because he was very much into women and children, taking care of women, children, and elderlies.
Yeah. You mentioned women, and then immediately the last two sentences of the purport, it says, of course, Gandhari is my wife's name as well. Gandhari, it says, Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishma Dev in character. They are both remarkable personalities in the Mahabharata. So we have no excuse for not taking care of our women, because Gandhari was equal to Bhishma Dev. We're just reading about the passing of Bhishma Dev. So she was equal in character, not to be neglected.
Absolutely, Prabhu.
So if we just read the books and apply what we read, and don't just, like I said, categorize it, whatever, write it out here and there. Really take this information to heart and put it into our practice. Practice what we're reading here. I heard something years ago and said that whatever you learn, you should teach it within 24 to 48 hours. So whatever we're learning here, we need to put it into practice. So when we put it into practice, that's called vijnana, or wisdom. And that's what's needed. It's like being able to realize this information by practice, not theoretically, but by practice. That would help so much, because it's a beautiful culture. Prabhupada said, glorious days, the glorious culture.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. That's what I'm going to take away from this class, is that phrase. It's not even in the class itself, but it's just there. Glorious. I mean, this amazing culture. Wow.
It really is. And I really like the point you said, Prabhu, that, what we do in terms of our preaching and sometimes gets too philosophical. You touch upon a little bit, yes, it's okay to get philosophical, but we have to apply it and make sure that our women are taken care of, the children are taken care of, the elderlies are taken care of.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that tends to slide off, and then the management and the philosophy and the preaching goes on. Then what about empowering the women, empowering the children, empowering the elders, making sure they're taken care of? I think they all go hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes up a spiritual community, is if they all, but it's work.
No, it's absolutely work, but it's joy. It's also joy.
Yes.
When we do
yes.
that. Let's not be discouraged. We should not be discouraged. It's just that the blueprint is in front of us. It's called Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita in terms about culture. Philosophy, Bhagavad Gita is much more, kind of focused on the philosophy. So we have everything. We have the philosophy, we have the culture. Bring it all together, put it into our lives and let the world see it. Because the world is looking for something. They're looking for some alternative to this madness. Okay, like the devotees in Poland, the devotees in Ukraine, they're trying right now to distribute prasadam in the midst of all this chaos, trying to help people. And I'm thinking, that's incredible. And the world's seeing that. People are seeing that example. It's amazing. So don't think, a simple example can affect the world. There's one guy they call the Piano Man. And what he was doing when the people were coming into Poland, he's playing these beautiful piano pieces from the Beatles and all this and that. This guy is internationally famous for sitting down playing a piano, trying to bring a little joy to people. One man, known all over the world now, the Piano Man. So the Hare Krishnas are known as what? What are we known as? I don't know sometimes. I'm trying to figure out, how does the world... Prabhupada used to say, they know us as the Hare Krishna people. You say, everywhere I go, Hare Krishna, that's how they know us. So that's really our identification. But they should know that we're compassionate. Like Prabhupada, when he saw those people, kids, trying to get a little food in the back of the Mayapur temple, he said no one should go hungry within 10 miles of the temple. He started Food for Life. Real compassion, real love. And the world needs to see more love from us. But that love should be between each other, as Rupa Goswami talks about. We have to show love amongst ourselves, and then together we try to help the society. But people need to see that we love each other, that we're taking care of each other. It's good that we try to take care of other people outside the movement, but we got to take care of each other. Third purpose of ISKCON, bring the members of the society closer together. We need to demonstrate how much we love each other, to the point of a Dhritarashtra personality. Still, we love him. He's in the family, okay? So they're taking care of him. Like you said, the Prabhupada disciples are still remaining. They're in your family. Find out who they are in your community. If they need some help, try to help them. Oh, yeah, but they left the temple. I don't want to hear that nonsense. Don't even talk to me about that. These are people in your family. Blind uncle, better than no uncle. Take care of them. And like in my community, the Atlanta community, there's a lot of senior Indian members that I know personally. Some of them don't even speak English, but we know each other, right? And whenever I see these, especially older ladies, I give them a big hug. I just love them so much. And they just rub my head and blessing me. And I just feel so good, I'm not doing that to make a show, but people see that. They see that I'm just not running here and there for my glory, but I'm taking special attention to those seniors, especially the seniors. Like in Philadelphia, I know a couple of the seniors there. As soon as I see them, I don't care. They get a hug from me. I'm sorry. Because they, sometimes they're neglected. They are sitting in the home by themselves and all they have is the India TV. I mean, come on, people, this is ridiculous. Yeah. Like Sangeeta said, go sit with them, read with them, give prasadam to them. So in my mind, I'm meditating on how can I make that a practice? If everyone's supposed to do it, no one's gonna do it. If everyone should do it, but not everyone's gonna do it. So we need to make it like programming how to take care of each other. Anyway.
Thank you so much for a wonderful topic, Prabhu. This is a really amazing topic. I know we passed the hour, but I just want to make sure if there are any devotees who have any questions or any comments, any clarification, or even to add, to what Balabhadra Prabhu said, please do jump right in before we end it, or you can put it in the chat and I can read it out. But I want to share one quick thing, Prabhu, is I remember when I was attending the GPC college 3 years ago, I think it's been 3 years, I don't remember now. Radhika Raman Prabhu, Mother Ruda's son, said that in today's times, as the world is changing, we have to change with the changing times without changing the principle. He said, he made the point and he said, but in today's times, if we want to attract people to our philosophy, the three main things, I think I remember 2 out of 3. He says that, how do we treat our women?
Wow.
Is what he said. How do we take care of our children? How do we take care of the earth? He said, because we talk about taking care of the earth and this and that, but then we misuse products, so he was talking more about biodegradable stuff and so on and so forth. So how we talk about peace-loving people, but are we taking care of the earth? Is what he was saying. And I forgot the 4th point, but he said that this is what attracts people in today's times.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And then the vegetarianism, that's what he said, because, are we really into, animal rights? So he was saying these are things that people are attracted to now, is we preach, but are we walking our talk? As you said, example is better than preaching, because that's what attracts people, is what he was saying. Yeah.
He's a wonderful devotee. He just reminded me real quick of an example of one of the reporters on CNN. I think her name was Calissa Ward, and they keep showing the same clip. And these are people coming off this boat coming into Poland from Ukraine. But there's this old lady with a bunch of bags. And Calissa Ward is actually, doing some interviews or whatever. She said, I need to help her with her bags. And she's helping the lady carry her bags up the hill. And it just brings me to tears every time. It's like they play that clip over and over. And I don't think she's doing it to get any kind of respect or credit. It's just she saw this old lady struggling with these bags coming from Ukraine, where it's just been bombed and people dying. She said, I need to help her. I mean, it says it all. It says it all. Example is definitely better than precept. People need to see that the Hare Krishnas care about each other. I mean, if we don't care about each other, how in the world are we going to help anybody else? When you get on the airplane, they tell you the parents to put the mask on first and then the kids. So if we can't demonstrate taking care of each other, how are we going to, do anything for the rest of the society? Yeah. And if we take care of each other, we can do more for the society. That's a fact. Yeah. I mean, there are old people who are out doing volunteer work all the time. So if we can inspire the older generation of the Hare Krishna movement to come back on Harinam, like Charadeshan, I just told you, he's got Parkinson's, he's suffering, he's going, every couple of weeks, he'll come out with me on Harinam. I bring a little chair for him to sit down, and he'll distribute books. He was one of the biggest book distributors from the 70s. He can't get it out of his heart, and he still wants to do a little something. So I'm just saying that together we can do more. If we bring the members of the society closer together, number 3 purpose of ISKCON, we can do more for the world. Do not forget your senior devotees and senior members of your community. They're so valuable.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for helping us to really embark on this culture of respecting and looking up and treating and always looking out for our seniors. Thank you so much. I want to thank the devotees for joining us on this beautiful class. And I encourage devotees to please encourage other devotees to hear this class. It's such an amazing class. And thank you so much, Balabhadra Prabhu, for
Thank
speaking
you.
about this amazing topic. And I want to thank all the devotees. Vanchakrapatibhyascha kripasindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hey, preacher, I was thinking about you all day yesterday, so you were in my mind and my heart.
He's lying down and resting.
No, I know. We were talking about him at lunch yesterday.
Oh, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Take good rest, Prabhu. Haribo. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Hare
Everyone,
Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Madhukita.
Haribo.